Parshas Chayei. Vayu Chayei Mea Shana, Ve'esrim Shana, Ve'sheva Shanim, Shnei Chayei. The Torah tells us that Sari Imenu lived for 127 years. This is an unusual occurrence. We don't find elsewhere in the Torah that the Torah spells out the length of the life of Noshim of Imoyas. In Gans Tanakh, we don't see ever that the Torah spells out the length of the lives of the Noshim, and specifically over here it spells it out in such detail. So why specifically by Sari Imenu does the Torah tell us exactly the length of her life, and in such detail? The Zohar HaKodesh says that Sari Imenu was a tzanua. Sari Imenu was a tzanua. She epitomized the midah of tznius, and she lived in Mitzrayim, the place that epitomized znus, zima, but it did not affect her. And she went up from Mitzrayim without any attachment to those midas rois of Mitzrayim, to the zima of Mitzrayim. Sari Imenu was a tzanua. But this answer seems to be quite puzzling because, of course, all the Imoyas were tznuais. The Noshim Tzidkonias throughout history and throughout Tanakh were tznuais. Sari Imenu was a tzanua, but so were the other Imoyas, the other Noshim Tzidkonias. Why Davka Sari Imenu? Rashi brings the medrash that says, Vayu Chayei, that there were 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. The Torah says Shanim Shona, each interval 120. They were all Kulan Vayu Elo Shnei Chayei Kulan Shavim L'Tova. They're all equal. They're all great. They're all equal L'Tova, great, wonderful years. Sari Imenu L'Chayra, she had a wonderful life. L'Chayra it's a davar pella. If we go through all the nisyonos of Avraham Avinu were Sari Imenu's nisyonos as well. She also had those nisyonos. Lech Lecho was a nisyon for Avraham Avinu, was a nisyon for Sarah as well. Vayirol Baretz, there was a famine in the land. They came to the land, there was a famine. They were hungry, they were starving. That was a nisyon for Sari Imenu. She had all those trials and tribulations. Paroi, taken to Para, Avimelech. Those were nisyonos, those were tzoras. Of course, she had the great tzora that for all those years, 90 years, she couldn't have children. Most people would consider that to be a tragedy. Kula and Shavim L'Toya, they were all wonderful years. Sari Imenu had all wonderful years. What does that mean? Vayu Chayei, the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, it's a lashon of nei, of anguish, of tsar, of pain, because as we know, she died suddenly when she heard that Yitzchak, her beloved Yitzchak, was going to be taken to the Mizbeach and burnt on the Mizbeach. Yitzchak, her son, her ben Yochid Yitzchak, that she strove to protect, that she had to protect him from Yishmael, all the tzoras of protecting him from Yishmael. When she finally had this son, and she had to protect this son, and all those tzoras, and he was going to be burnt on the Mizbeach, Parcha Nishmalsai, with tsar, with pain and anguish. So what does that mean in the Medrash? Kulan Shavim L'Tova. They were all equally great, wonderful years. Most people would look through the history of her life and say, oh, they're filled with suffering, filled with tragedies. What does it mean, Kulan Shavim L'Tova? But Ken Zayin, the pshat is that they were all Shavim L'Tova because she succeeded, because she had a successful life. They were Shavim L'Tova. They were good. They were good years because she fulfilled her purpose. She fulfilled her purpose in the Bria, Tachlis in the Bria, the purpose of what she was created for. There were all these nisyonos, and she stood up to all of these challenges. She overcame them all. And she was oila mala mala. They're called Nisham L'Toiva because all of these nisyonos were meant to elevate the tzaddikim and elevate the world. And Sarah Imenu succeeded in all of these nisyonos. And therefore they were Kul Nisham L'Toiva. Ein Toiv L'Tzaddikim El Lamed Min Nisayon. The greatest good that tzaddikim can have in this world is to succeed in Avodas Hashem, to withstand the challenges, the trials and the tribulations, and Sarah Imenu did. And why does the Torah therefore spell out in detail the length of her life, which is not mentioned by anybody else? Because she was a tzanua. She was tzanua at a time when the people around, society around, were not tzanua, and where she did not have a role model to learn from. She did not have a mother, a grandmother. She did not have a society of Yidden. The Torah wasn't given yet. She was a Yochid, a Yechida. She was alone. She had to withstand this on her own. The world around her was full of Zima. She was the most beautiful woman in the world. She was the most coveted woman in the world. In a society that was full of Zima, and she was a Tzanua. She was the foundation of Tznius. The foundation of Tznius for all future generations, for all the other Imoyes, for all the Noshim Tzidkonias, for all the Klal Yisrael. She was the foundation because she was a Tzanua and no one else was. She was the foundation, the role model for Tznius. The most beautiful woman in the world, surrounded in a society of Znos, without any role models, without a society, a protective society, and on her own. She was the example of Tznius. And it's a lesson to learn for all of us. It's a lesson to learn for all of us, and we can see it from the example in our times. Those giants that came to America during the war years, in the early days of the Yeshiva in America, before the war, during the war, and after the war, when Torah was not accepted, Limud Torah was not accepted, yeshivas and kollel was not something that people were accepted. And those giants withstood the tide, and they built Torah in the face of all those nisyonos, and we can see, Baruch Hashem, the result, how Torah is flourishing as a result of their Mesiras Nefesh. And again, we are now, unfortunately, in a society which is Moli Zima, where the concepts of Tznius are, again, not being accepted. The concept of Tznius are being degraded and derided. Where, again, we have to stand up against the tide. But Baruch Hashem, at least now we do have a protective society. We do have role models. We have the Torah. We have our institutions. The Rabbi Shalom should give us success in withstanding this nisyonos.